I've been studying corona as a data scientist. My area of speciality is time trajectories of anything since for 150 days already, basically working, 18 hours a day. One thing that has struck me once the virus moved from its China-Korea phase to the rest of the world at the beginning of March is how totally inadequate science structure is for real-time science. People are insisting on refereed reports. No one wants to share anything. The scientists are more panicked and scared of reality than anybody else. The august organizations like Lindau, the Royal Society, the National Academy of Science have been totally silent. I am really disappointed. This has got nothing to do with the politics. As a group, scientists have failed the younger generation. Deciding what to do in this situation is really, really difficult. We cannot rely on one or two voices. There should have been a committee formed either by the Nobel Foundation, by Lindau, by the Royal Society, the National Academy in the middle of February when this was coming down the road, and we should have discussed this. Instead, we let economics and politics dedicate the science, and for me, the worst opposition I got was from very, very prominent scientists who were so scared that the non-scientists would break quarantine and infect them. There was total panic, and the fact is that almost all the science we were hearing, for example, from organizations like the World Health Organization, was wrong. We had Facebook censoring the World Health Organization, contrary views, and you're going to see that everything I said in that first 6 weeks was actually true, and for political reasons, we as scientists let our views be corrupted. The data had very clear things to say. Nobody said to me, let me check your numbers. They all just said, stop talking like that. So I think if we had initially just a few scientists talking to each other on Zoom, not about the opinions, but about the data. What is the population infection ratio? What is the severity? Does this thing grow exponentially? The epidemiologists made their normal error. Epidemiologists they see their job not as getting things correct, but preventing an epidemic. So therefore, if they say it's 100 times worse than it's going to be, it's okay. Their mistake was that we listened to them. They said the same thing for Ebola. They said the same thing for bird flu. No one shut down for them. We should never have listened to the epidemiologists. They have caused hundreds of billions of dollars worth of suffering and damage, mainly on the younger generation. It's going to make 9/11 look like a baby story, not just combating a virus that is exactly as dangerous as flu, but also avoiding the economic damage that every country has caused itself except Sweden. We have really, really failed as a group, but I would like people to contribute me on the details. Why is it not exponential? I can show you. Why is the case infection ratio this, not that? There is data for this. In other words, everything is data-driven, but people have chosen not to look at the data. Even in many places, the politics has infected the scientists. Certainly in the USA. Nobody ever said, you're saying this, can I check your numbers? This is all something which any intelligent person could do themselves in a few days. Every science needs problems to be worked over. This is not quantum mechanics. Maybe it is quantum mechanics, but it's basically not that difficult. They're simple logical assumptions. And, in the end, they got discussed, but they got discussed so slowly and so late. Remember, unlike most of science, we have everything has a very limited shelf life. To predict that Italy is over today is very easy. To predict what's going to happen in Italy on the beginning of March was very difficult. And it would have helped Italy to know that they were going to have no more than 500 per million deaths rather than what they were expecting. So I honestly do believe that even just two scientists talking would have been a great way to get this going. The one place that did have some intelligent conversation, but I only got involved in that very late, was the European Molecular Biology Lab. They had Friday afternoon Zoom conferences, but even these were very limited in extent. I think that, maybe because we couldn't meet, we didn't have the chance to discuss. Committees of very diverse people who are well-intentioned are such smart devices and they really, really can solve problems. I think we would together plan how to approach the public. The one good thing for me that came out of all of this, I discovered Twitter. And Twitter has much more intelligent conversation than the National Academy of Science, the Royal Society, Lindau, or the Nobel Foundation. And I actually said this in an early tweet. The criticism is wonderful because good science, you have to be able to stand up to criticism. Scientists expect to be torn apart. And we, as you said, we circled the wagons against this, and it really, really hurt us. The people who are generally dying are the older people. The age mortality of people under 65 is exactly 8%. Over 85 is 50%. Those are exactly the same numbers that we see for flu. I did want to say something about risk going back further, and the Winston Center. In the middle of March, Sir David Spiegelhalter wrote a very nice Medium review equating the risk of corona with the natural risk of dying. And basically he concluded that the risk of corona, using numbers that were coming out of Imperial College, was about 1 year's worth of death. I immediately wrote back and said he was wrong. My analysis suggested that it was not 1 year's worth of death, but 1 month worth of death. I then tried to communicate this to Neil Ferguson. He ignored my emails. I got in touch with the head of the Royal Society, eventually got them to read the emails, and in the end they said, no, I was wrong. It is 1 year. The fact is, 2 months later, the excess burden of death of corona is about 3 weeks of natural death. So the fact is, as these scientists shut things down, the problem is not just with lack of communication with the public. Scientists are arrogant and refuse to listen to people not in their fields. It's not just the World Health Organization. Ferguson wanted Sweden to lock down, got Britain to lock down, and when the numbers become normal, exactly what you would have expected without lockdown, he then says, it's because of lockdown. This is terrible science. This is science which should go on trial. Scientists cannot cause damage like this and refuse to listen. I really, really tried hard to get them at least to discuss this with me. In the end, I said something I never say, whatever, just leave me alone, go ahead and die. And the fact is that epidemiology and modeling has been a disgrace. They have not looked at the data. They have been wrong at every turn. We're going to see that although coronavirus is a different disease, the net impact of death is going to be very similar to severe flu. And it's going to be that way without lockdown. Sweden is the only country that has done the right thing. They're heading for what they consider herd immunity. It occurs at 15%, not at 80%. Another error that the epidemiologists made. Sweden is going to end up with about 600 deaths per million.